someone referred to people who speak in alphabet soup. How do we deal with folks who may appear to be kind of hard to reach, hard to communicate with?
I've been in support spaces with a number of people, who are considered to be, I think the favorite term that I heard from a clinician once was floridly psychotic.
Oh,
Um, and it just has not, and maybe also as like as a reference point, like I have two children who have a lot of like uh alternative like ways of being verbal and kind of trouble expressing themselves in the usual way. And I don't know, like I personally have never had the problem where like if really sit with somebody and ask some questions that are relevant to what they're saying, maybe it takes 15, 20 minutes, maybe it takes up to an hour, where I can't find some really deep, like relevant meaning in what they're saying. And I think a lot of the time, a lot of that comes from either impatience or a place of there being too much tension or conflict in that relationship for meaning to arise. But I know that like in the Hearing Voices movement, we talk a lot about people's beliefs, forms of expression, sensations they're describing, as being relevant and meaningful in the course of their lives. So, one example that I give, maybe this isn't, I don't even know what people call word salad or alphabet soup, because frankly, like I've almost always been able to pick up on at least a phrase or two where like there's meaning I can follow up on with somebody. I don't know that I've maybe experienced what I imagine that to be or what I see it looking like in the movies. But one example I give is someone came into our space, talking about just kind of like, lots of little fragments, being really angry about, dark magic and like bad things happening and how they were trying to stop it. And, it only took a few questions to get at something, really really pertinent in that conversation. I validated that there was something they were upset about. I asked them, if this black magic was coming from any place in particular, and they said, yeah, that housing complex, this project on the edge of town. I said, oh wow, okay. And have you had any other experiences there? And it jumped right out of like, half an hour of ranting about black magic to, yeah, the landlord there is, an a-hole. And like, I got evicted and they kept my security deposit. And it's like, it's a mess over there. So, that's just one example that really stuck in my mind of like, I literally had people coming to me for weeks saying, we don't understand what this person is talking about. How do we support her? And I found out what she was talking about in like 5 minutes, because like I was patient and curious and really actually cared about what she was saying instead of just dismissing it as being word salad or alphabet soup.
So I agree with everything Nathan said, and I really appreciated that you kind of respond to the feeling, because there's usually a feeling behind it. But I was in a state hospital meeting one time. It was a family meeting, and there was staff there, and the individual was there about whom the meeting was about, but nobody was asking her opinion, of course, like happens. So, but somebody asked her at some point, it probably was myself or one of my staff asked her, well, what would you like? And she started talking about not having, it wasn't as logical as most people would like it to be, but she was talking about not having underwear, only having access to state underwear and really wanting to be pretty again. And basically she was saying, I want to be able to get out of here before I'm so old that I can't get a boyfriend. That's really what she was saying, but she focused on state underwear. And the state personnel said, and Jim, you know this person, but you knew this person. The state personnel said, well, we can take you to the store or go to the store for you and buy you new underwear. And I knew that's not what she was really saying, but I didn't want to like go crosswise to the state people. But at some point, she stood up in the chair and then just got as rigid as she could be and went over. And she was responding to, you really aren't listening to me. And then, of course, they said, see, you are delusional. You're not ready to leave here. And that's unfortunate, because I would have said, I think it sounds to me like you're wanting to get a boyfriend and get a life. And, you know, but the other thing that I did learn is, and this is where Natan is right on, is if you just listen, and that's the problem. People we don't listen because we think we don't understand them. But if you just listen and you're there long enough, and then someone gave me some words to help me with this. And it has always worked for me. If I really can't understand what the person is saying, I say, I really am having trouble understanding you, but I really want to. Can you say it in a way that are a language that I understand better? So they make it about me. Like it's my problem that I can't understand you. Can you help me by putting words that I would understand?